Alright, day 2, 1.5, 1.6 operations with integers. Today we're going to be working with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Integers. What integers are whole numbers, but they are positive and negative. So let's look a little bit more into that. We're going to start by just reminding ourselves what the number line is. You can look, it starts at 0, going to the right is positive numbers, getting bigger, going to the left is negative numbers, getting smaller. Something to remember with negative numbers, -3 is definitely bigger than -4 because it's less negative, or it's closer to 0. So if you want to use a number line when you're starting with negatives, that's a good idea. Hopefully we can get past that pretty quick here. So number 1, 1 plus 2. I mean, we all know that 1 plus 2 is 3, but if you start at 1 and you add 2, you go 2 spots to the right, and it ends at 3. That's why 1 plus 2 is 3. Let's start with number 2 then. 4 plus a -3. Well, you start at 4. Now when you add a negative, you're actually going to the left 3 spots. So 1, 2, 3, and you end up right here at 1. So 4 plus a -3 is 1. And then last but not least, number 3, -2 plus a -1. So you're at -2, that's where you start. And if you add a -1, that means you're going to the left. So -2 plus a -1 would be -3. Okay, so if you want to continue to use the number line, you're more than welcome to. For the rest of these, I will not be using it. Alright, so let's just start adding. -3 plus 4. That's like being at -3 and you're going to the right, so you're getting bigger by 4 spots. Now don't forget about the 0. So -3 plus 4 is actually +1. So if you wanted to rewrite that, you could say 4 minus 3, because it's still +4 and -3, which makes 1. Number 2, 4 plus a -6. Well, you're at 4, you're adding, so you're going -6, which means to the left. Okay, so you go all the way down to 0, and then you go 2 more, because it's 6. And you get -2. So 4 plus a -6 is -2. Now when you look at this, the 4 and the 6, because the 6 is a bigger number and it's negative, that's how we know our answer was going to be negative. So that's a trick you can use. Number 3, -3 plus -7. Here's where a lot of people get confused. You have 2 negatives. When you add them together, you're actually getting more negative. So it's like if I owe you $3, and then I owe you 7 more, now I owe you, so -10. So when they're both negative, you can just add the numbers and keep it negative. Number 4, 2 minus 4. You have 1 positive, you have 1 negative. So 2 minus 4 is where you go left 4. Since the 4 is a bigger number and it's negative, we know our answer is going to be negative. So 2 minus 4 is -2. So when they're opposite signs, you can subtract the numbers and then figure out whether it should be positive or negative by which one was bigger. And then last but not least, number 5, 4 minus -6. So this is like we're at the 4, we're going left, but then we're going left again. And when you make 2 lefts, that's the same thing as making a right. So 4 minus -6, actually when you have 2 negatives that are right next to each other, like these 2 are, they become a positive because they cancel each other out. So you actually have 4 plus 6, which is 10. So whenever you have 2 negatives next to each other, directly next to each other, with no number in between, it changes to a positive. Okay, let's switch to multiplying and dividing. We're actually usually better at multiplying and dividing, so I'm not too worried about this. The main thing you have to remember is if you have 2 positives, it's going to equal a positive. If you have 2 negatives, it's going to equal a positive. But if you have 1 negative and 1 positive, it's going to equal a negative. So like number 1, -2 times 8. Well, you have 1 negative, 1 positive, so it's going to be negative. And 2 times 8 is 16. Number 2, -3 times -5. A negative times a negative makes a positive. And 3 times 5 is 15. So your answer is +15. Number 3, dividing. Now we don't have a calculator for this first unit, so when we divide, if you don't know what 84 divided by 14 is, you got to go back to the old way. So you have the 14. Figure out how many times it's going to go into 84. Well, 14 doesn't go into 8, so we have to just try some. So we'll try, let's say, 5. So you take 14 times 5, you get your 0 to 70. Well, that's not enough, so you got to try another one. So 6. 14 times 6, 4 to 84. Perfect. So 14 times 6 makes 84. So now you have a negative 84 divided by a positive 14, so your answer is going to be negative 6. And last but not least, number 4, a negative 39 divided by a negative 13. You got to figure out 13 times what is going to give you 39. So if you try 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 1 is 3, so it's 3. Okay, a negative divided by a negative makes a positive, so your answer is positive 3. Okay, so that is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with integers. We'll see you tomorrow.